Hey everyone, Aaron here from Push Square, and this week I've been playing Black Myth Wukong, a game that I would have reviewed today, but we did not get to play the game on PS5. That's right, we only had access to PC, which is the gameplay that you're watching today. This is my gameplay, but we didn't get to play the game on PS5, which of course has us pausing for thought on the potential performance and visual quality of the console release, but of course we can't really talk about that today. We'll have a full PS5 review up on the Push Square website when we actually get our hands on that copy, so be sure to check out that. But today I want to talk about the actual content of the game itself, since I've played over 12 hours of it so far. Black Myth Wukong is an adaptation of Journey to the West, meaning it's chock full of Chinese mythological creatures. Now on top of its gorgeous visuals, you'll really be struck by its impeccable enemy designs. Ranging from red-eyed wolves to slippery serpents, there's an odd groundedness mixed into these fantastical designs, with top-of-the-line animation making each of them feel fresh and different. It's honestly great to see. This is really a game that is pushing the technical limit. Now, there's not a whole lot of downtime when you're playing this game. It likes to ensure that there are always bosses just around the corner and that the leveling system just keeps ticking away in the background. I had that, you know, that dopamine rush you get when you're just getting upgrades and skill points and new challenges thrown at you and you're constantly bettering your character, which made my time with the game really fly by. Now, while initially quite linear, the areas in Wukong are filled with sneaky little passages and hidden bosses. Upon reaching a boss in one of the game's areas, I found two different paths that I could have accessed it from, so it gave the impression of this winding maze-like design that certainly would reward the nosy explorer. In the 12 hours that I played, I pushed through to the third of 5 chapters, but I can easily foresee these areas taking as much as double that time to fully explore. But of course, why are you exploring? What is there to find? Well, on top of the in-depth leveling system, you're going to find ingredients and collectibles which can be used to craft armors and weapons, fine-tune your build, and even use items to unlock shortcuts or new pathways. The leveling system in itself is surprisingly deep, with stamina, attacks, stances and spells all having their own upgrade trees. Like, genuinely, you could sink a lot of time into this. And it's great to see that you can actually respec your skills at any point in the game. Now, all of these elements are put to the test when you come into contact with the game's many bosses, and these are easily the best aspect of Wukong, because, as I mentioned, they have these incredible designs, but also it's the combat scenarios that the game is putting you in. One fight against a half man, half serpent. Honestly, it felt like I was in a kung fu movie as I danced around this enemy. We were swishing through the water, and there's this really satisfying dodge sound effect when you get a perfect dodge. It was just so much fun, and I felt so attuned with the combat. There's another boss somewhere in the third chapter that I can't talk about today, but honestly, it's so cool. Now, while the game itself isn't as difficult as a Souls game, you're going to keep your XP and items upon death, each of the bosses are challenging in their own ways. Through their animalistic inspirations, the bosses move, attack and take damage differently, making each fight feel like a fresh new mechanic being introduced to the game. It forces you to really look at your abilities and your perks and see how you can maximize your build against this particular enemy. Sometimes my builds synced up with an enemy and I didn't find it that hard. Other times I really struggled. Now, controlling your character is a fairly simple affair from the outset. You just have light combo attacks which expand as you upgrade your character, and then you have these heavy attacks which gain power based on your building focus level. Now, this isn't just like your typical game where the attacks are just a little bit slower because they're heavier. These are like attacks that you really have to time well because they are super dangerous otherwise. There are also these stances that you get with your staff, but to be honest, I just felt like these done the same thing in a different way. I didn't feel the need to really switch things up too much. When actually facing the enemies though, the combat feels fantastic. Like I said, that swishy dodge, it just is so fun, and learning the attack patterns really feeds into this even further. There's a nice rhythm to the combat in Wukong. But I have to say, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. The game's bosses are excellent, but the stuff in between isn't quite as engaging. It has a lovely look to it all, and areas with Chinese inspired statues or architecture are always cool to look at, but it lacks that sense of place that a game like Lords of the Fallen has, you know, where this environment, this setting existed long before you played this game. There's a reason things are the way they are in this area as they are in that area. That's not really the case here in Black Myth Wukong. It's almost as if game science decided to make a woodland area, then a desert area, then why not throw some snow into this place? Its setting is more of a greatest hits of environments rather than any kind of cohesive living location. Like I said though, they do all look nice, but there's something there that doesn't sell the setting to me, at least from what I've played so far. Now when you are exploring these areas, there are things to discover to make your character more powerful, as I mentioned, but ultimately I didn't really feel the need to farm XP like you would in Elden Ring. The bosses themselves are phenomenal, but it's just that connective tissue between them that feels quite anemic. Not to mention that the realistic graphical design is often thwarted by invisible walls, which I came into contact with a lot more than I would like to admit. Now, did all of that take away from my experience with the game? No, not really. The boss fights and the staccato combat always kept me on my toes, and the boss designs are a delight to discover each time. Honestly, you never know what this game's going to throw at you in terms of its boss fights. Now obviously my chief concern right now is how does this game run on PS5? On my PC, if you're curious, I have an i9, 32 gigs of RAM and a 3080 graphics card, so I easily ran the game on PC at high settings with the frame rate surpassing 60 FPS easily. However, this is a meaty game and certainly one that's going to push the PS5 technically. Hopefully the performance issues can be cleared up, we know what's what when the game launches on August 20th, because I can't wait to check out the full experience on PS5. But please do let me know how excited you are for Black Myth Wukong down in the comments below. I think you really should be holding off on the pre-orders right now if you're looking to console. Here's hoping things are Eachy peachy, everything's completely fine, but of course not getting the console codes makes you question it a little bit, so just hold off a little to see how things are performing and then pick the game up. But other than that, the actual content itself is super fun and I can't wait to dive into more of it. But anyway, thank you for watching. Remember to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more PlayStation video content, and until next time, I've been Aaron and this has been Push Square.